John Gotti, a name synonymous with power, influence, and infamy, became one of the most notorious mobsters in American history, known as the Teflon Don, for his ability to evade conviction despite facing multiple serious charges. Gotti's life story is both a tale of ambition and a cautionary narrative of the high price of a life in organized crime. His rise to the top of New York's Gambino crime family.
John Gotti took charge of what's called the Gambino crime family shortly after his reputed predecessor was gunned down.
His unparalleled success in the underworld and his eventual downfall are nothing short of legendary. In today's video, we'll explore John Gotti's origins, his rise within the Mafia, his notorious criminal enterprises, and how the very qualities that made him a feared and respected figure in the criminal world ultimately led to his downfall. John Gotti was born on October 27, 1940, in the South Bronx, New York, in a poor working-class neighborhood. He was the fifth of 13 children in an Italian-American family. Gotti's father, John Gotti Sr., was a butcher who struggled to support his family. His mother, Fanny, worked hard to help make ends meet. Gotti grew up in the tough streets of East New York and later moved to Ozone Park, Queens. Life in these areas was difficult, and he learned early that survival required strength. As a boy, he was drawn to the local criminal underworld, where figures like the Mafia were both feared and respected. By the time he was 12, Gotti was doing small tasks for local criminals, and as a teenager, he was involved in petty thefts and minor crimes. His connection to the Mafia began in his late teens, when he started working for the Gambino crime family. Gotti took on small jobs, like loan sharking, running numbers, and collecting debts. These early activities in organized crime taught him that power meant controlling others, and making money without getting directly involved. By the late 1970s, Gotti had earned the trust of several key figures in the Gambino crime family, one of New York's 5 families that dominated organized crime. The Gambino family was a powerful force, led at the time by Paul Castellano, a cold, calculating, and business-minded boss who ran the organization with an iron fist. However, Castellano's approach to leadership, detached and largely focused on white-collar crime, didn't sit well with many of the more traditional members of the family, who preferred the old-school methods of street violence, extortion, and strong-arm tactics. Gotti, who had a knack for attracting the loyalty of others, including younger, hungry members of the family, began to make his mark within the organization. He proved himself as a reliable earner for the Gambinos, managing rackets involving drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and loan sharking. But it was his reputation as a ruthless and ambitious figure that made him stand out in the eyes of the family's leadership. The pivotal moment in Gotti's rise came in 1985, when Paul Castellano was gunned down outside of the Spark Steakhouse in Manhattan, in a hit that many suspected was orchestrated by Gotti himself. The murder of Castellano was a dramatic break from tradition. The old boss was killed not by law enforcement, but by his own family, led by the ambitious Gotti. With Castellano gone, Gotti moved quickly to claim control of the family. Despite facing widespread suspicion about his role in Castellano's murder, Gotti managed to secure the title of boss. The hit on Castellano was a monumentous event that sent shockwaves through the Mafia world, making the beginning of Gotti's reign at the top of the Gambino family. Evasion and public persona. Once in power, John Gotti became a name that was both feared and admired in the criminal world. His rise was not only due to his ruthlessness, but also his ability to evade law enforcement. Gotti earned the nickname the Teflon Don, because despite multiple high-profile arrests and criminal charges, nothing seemed to stick to him in the courtroom. Gotti's ability to avoid conviction was legendary. He was known for his clever use of legal maneuvering, his ability to intimidate witnesses, and his talent for selecting juries that would be sympathetic to his cause. But his greatest asset was his loyal inner circle, particularly his consigliere, Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, who played a key role in helping Gotti navigate legal and criminal challenges. Perhaps Gotti's most famous courtroom victory came in 1987, when he was acquitted of charges in the murder of Paul Castellano and several other crimes. The trial, which became a media spectacle, ended with a hung jury, and Gotti walked free. His success in evading conviction was a source of immense pride for him, and he began to cultivate a public persona as a charming and confident mafia boss who had the system in his pocket. Unlike many other mobsters who preferred to stay out of the public eye, Gotti embraced the media. He wore sharp suits, often appeared at high-profile events, and was photographed frequently. His presence in the media made him a folk hero in certain circles. He was portrayed as a figure who defied the odds, untouchable, invincible, and smarter than everyone around him. But this public bravado also made Gotti a target. While other mafia bosses hid from the law, Gotti's visibility only made him more of a threat to law enforcement. His flamboyance, including his love of publicity, and his near-constant media coverage would eventually play a crucial role in his downfall. John Gotti's criminal enterprises were vast and multifaceted. As the boss of the Gambino family, he oversaw a network of operations that spanned everything from extortion to drug trafficking. His ability to maintain control over these activities while keeping his hand relatively clean was a hallmark of his leadership style. Number 1. The murder of Paul Castellano. One of the most infamous episodes in Gotti's rise to power was the assassination of Gambino family boss Paul Castellano. The murder, carried out on December 16, 1985, outside Sparks Steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan, remains one of the most audacious acts in Mafia history. Castellano was viewed by many as an ineffective leader, out of touch with the street-level operatives of the family. Gotti capitalized on the dissatisfaction to orchestrate his bold coup. The hit was meticulously planned, with Gotti overseeing every detail. Gunmen, positioned strategically, opened fire on Castellano and his underboss, Thomas Bellotti. As they exited their car, witnesses described a scene of chaos as bullets flew during the rush hour, leaving the two men dead on the sidewalk. Gotti, watching the scene from a car parked nearby, ensured that no direct evidence tied him to the crime. This act was more than just a power grab, it was a statement. Gotti was willing to defy tradition by eliminating Castellano without the approval of the Mafia Commission. It demonstrated his willingness to take unprecedented risks to consolidate power, setting a tone of fear and respect that would define his tenure as boss. Number 2. The Mafia Trial, 1990. For years, Gotti evaded prosecution despite being the target of relentless investigations. His charm and savvy, combined with a willingness to intimidate witnesses and tamper with juries, led to a series of high-profile acquittals. However, the 1990 Mafia trial would prove to be his undoing. The trial centered on a series of racketeering charges that implicated Gotti in crimes ranging from extortion to murder. Prosecutors faced an uphill battle, as Gotti's reputation as untouchable loomed large. The turning point came when Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, Gotti's underboss and close confidant, chose to cooperate with the government. Gravano's betrayal was a watershed moment in Mafia history. Over the course of his testimony, Gravano admitted to participating in 19 murders and provided intricate details of the Gambino family's inner workings. He directly implicated Gotti in Castellano's murder, exposing how Gotti had ordered the hit and managed the aftermath. The trial culminated in 1992, with Gotti being convicted of murder, racketeering, and other charges. The verdict ended Gotti's reign and shattered the myth of the Teflon Don. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, marking one of the most significant victories in the fight against organized crime. Number 3. The Black Friday Racket. While Castellano's assassination and his trials gained widespread attention, Gotti's day-to-day operations as boss involved less sensational but equally impactful schemes, such as the Black Friday Racket. This operation targeted businesses in New York City's Garment District, a thriving commercial hub. Under Gotti's leadership, the Gambino family imposed a system of extortion, demanding protection fees from businesses to shield them from fabricated threats. These payments, extracted through a combination of intimidation and violence, became a major revenue stream for the family, generating millions annually. Gotti's ability to orchestrate and maintain control over this complex scheme highlighted his strategic prowess and deep connections within New York's business landscape. The Garment District Racket not only provided financial gains, but also reinforced Gotti's image as an untouchable figure who could operate openly without fear of legal repercussions. This operation showcased how deeply the Mafia had infiltrated legitimate industries, turning them into lucrative sources of illegal income. Gotti's downfall. While Gotti had enjoyed several years of success in both the criminal world and the courts, his luck began to run out in the early 1990s. The turning point came with the betrayal of his trusted ally, Sammy the Bull Gravano. After being convicted on a slew of charges, Gravano chose to cooperate with the federal government in exchange for a reduced sentence. Gravano's testimony against Gotti was a significant blow. It was the first time that such a close associate of Gotti's had turned on him, and it led to Gotti's conviction on charges including murder, racketeering, and conspiracy. In 1992, Gotti was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Gotti was initially sent to the United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, a high-security prison where he would remain for the rest of his life. His health began to deteriorate during his time in prison, and in 1998 he was diagnosed with throat cancer. Gotti's health declined rapidly, and he died on June 10, 2002, at the age of 61. John Gotti's legacy is one of intrigue, notoriety, and tragedy. He is remembered as a brilliant strategist and a master manipulator who achieved unimaginable power within the Mafia, only to see it crumble under the weight of betrayal, justice, and his own hubris. His story is a quintessential rise and fall narrative, a man who built an empire on violence, loyalty, and calculated risks, only to be undone by the very traits that made him so formidable. Despite his eventual conviction and death, Gotti's place in American crime history remains cemented. His life and actions continue to inspire films, documentaries, and books, making him a figure of both fascination and revulsion. His ability to survive multiple murder trials earned him the title of Teflon Don, but in the end, even the most untouchable figures must face the consequences of their choices.